I know that most of these videos start with people talking about how they were losers growing up or, disabled by social anxiety. But my reality is that I wasn't a loser growing up, nor have I ever really been plagued by anything like social anxiety. In fact, I am quite social, and I've always found it very easy to make friends. Growing up, I'd see my friends as my selected family, and they had a deep meaning and played a huge role in my life. However, today at 24, despite being social, I can't really say that I have any friends. Now, defining what a friend is something that I believe is different for many people. But for me, I've come up with the sort of general definition being that if a friend is someone who would remember you and check in on you somewhat regularly, as well as remembering your birthday. There also should be some extent of you two building a life together or seeing a future where you're both a part of each other's lives. Now, I'm perhaps luckier than many because I have a best friend in my boyfriend. However, I'm fully aware that if I didn't have him or if we happened to break up sometime, I wouldn't really have anyone. And I've come to the realization that I can appear to have many friends, but this is not much more than appearances because I'm also painfully aware that if it was not for my own investment into these relationships, they would most likely cease to exist. So in a weird way, you could say that I'm ensuring a visually not lonely life, but it's not friendships with the people that I have around me per se. There's, I think, two main reasons for why things are like this for me. One is societal and one is personal. And I'd like to start talking about the societal problems because I think that they might be relatable to most people. Because in life, we're asked to spend most of our living and breathing days working. And most of us will be working for someone else. And you may be lucky to have some friends at work, but ultimately, I think the common experience and the common rhetoric for that matter is that colleagues are not your friends. At the end of the day, we're all competing for promotions, salary raises, and recognition. And when one person in your department gets promoted over you, dynamics at the office can change. Well, you should always act professional, nice, and friendly. You don't need to tell every person at work your deepest, darkest secrets. You should probably set boundaries, and assuming friendliness at work is genuine friendship can be entirely detrimental to your whole livelihood. So although I get along with many coworkers and consider them friends to some extent, I'm not fortunate enough to be able to trust them or believe that our friendship would somehow carry on when I leave for another job, or, they could have the possibility to screw me over. And even if we were genuinely good friends, it can be hard to see where that friendship would fit into our everyday lives. I don't really have time for it, frankly, and neither do most people. We have a world that's set up around our productivity and resourcefulness, not one that's designed with friendship front and center. And, I'm lucky enough to live in Scandinavia where standard working hours are actually mostly respected. But even with that, there's not much time left in between working your ass off and trying to compete with computer efficiency and recharging in the weekends to actually spend any significant amount of time invested into friendships. Which brings me to the other half of what I believe to be the structural reasons why I don't have any friends. And this is the internet. Now, I'm well aware that me stating that the internet and social media was supposed to connect us and it actually does the opposite is not anything anyone hasn't heard before. But despite it being like old news, and also despite many people being aware of it, it feels like a devil that you just can't escape. The way that the internet makes everything easy and everyone reachable, it sort of ensures that nobody feels like they actually have to be a good friend anymore. Just take things like birthdays, for example. Facebook has effectively made that value of birthday wishes drop to be almost nothing. They've effectively diluted the potency of a birthday greeting, if you may, and they've done this by making it so easy to do. Before, your friends would have to remember your birthday. They would have to ask at some point, and they would most likely have write it down somewhere to remember it, mark it in a calendar or something, and then check that calendar or note, and then sit down and write you a birthday card or make a mental note to congratulate you when they see you next time. Today, when you accept someone's friend request on Facebook, all of this is essentially done for you. Everyone knows when everyone's birthday is, and they even get notifications on the day to remember to send you good wishes. So a birthday wish is no longer like a gesture of love and care for a friend, it's a response to a notification. I can't imagine how few people in my life actually would know it was my birthday if I removed the birthday function. In fact, I can't imagine it because I have done it and it was nobody, shocker, except my mom and my boyfriend. But I don't blame people for it. I can't blame them for it because they now rely on this social system that has been set up for us. And then there's my own personal issues. Because I believe that a big reason why I don't have any true friends is because I'm too nice. Yes, that's right. I am just too kind to people. I sound like a pick-me boy. Or I'm aware I sound like an incel, but hear me out. I have a lot of friendship spots in my life that are like filled, as I mentioned earlier, with relationships that are essentially completely kept up by me. The reality is that these friendships aren't really friendships. They are just people who stick around in my life because I care for them, and they don't have to do anything back, but they still get to be my friend. I remember there's one moment that really made this obvious to me because I used to be pretty much completely oblivious to this habit of mine. But it was when I talked to a friend that I had been best friends with for perhaps like 3 to 4 years, but then we'd had a falling out of sorts, nothing like super personal for either one of us, but she just like then never reached out to me again. Even though I told her that I'd like that, and so I guess I at some point just tested it and would like just stop reaching out to her to see if she would do it back, and she didn't. And then I reached out to her and I met up with her and told her that I thought it was hurtful that she hadn't reached out to me, and she told me that she didn't think that I needed to be cared for, that like I seemed like I had my shit together and I was strong and that I had many friends, and that's why she thought I didn't need it. Now, this really opened my eyes to how crazy her perception of me was. Someone I had as my closest confidant didn't think that she needed to care for me, didn't think that she should reach out to me, or I guess didn't want to. It was quite shocking, honestly, because I don't think I've ever assumed anything like that about people in my own life. I just assume that everyone, especially my closest friends, need me to some extent. And even if I wasn't sure, I think I'd always check in and make sure rather than assume distance from them. But some people genuinely I think, don't care about you. And wanting them to care about you doesn't make them either. I know that I need to be better at letting people and things and jobs that are not serving me just go, and accepting that, as Epictetus said, some things are in our control and others are not. Things in our control are opinions. Oh my God. Things in our control are opinion, pursuit, desire, aversion, and in a word, whatever are your own actions. Things not in our control are body, property, reputation, command, and in one word, whatever are not our actions. The things in our control are by nature free, unrestrained, unhindered, but those not in our control are weak, slavish, restrained, and belonging to others. Remember then that if you suppose that things which are slavish by nature are also free, and that what belongs to others is your own, then you will be hindered. You will lament, you will be disturbed, and you will find fault both with gods and men. But if you suppose that only to be your own which is your own, and what belongs to others such as it really is, then no one will ever compel or restrain you. Further, you will find fault with no one or accuse no one. You will do nothing against your will, and no one will hurt you. You will have no enemies, and you will not be harmed. Friendship is still important to me, and I still wish to have great friends, but I think that it's only by letting go of these things that are outside of my control that I could actually have a chance at getting it. And learning to be it's like learning to be fine without it, so as not to be dependent on it and thus stay in unfavorable situations. Because otherwise, I guess my plan is to just become so rich that I don't have to work 8 hours a day. But even if I did do that, then most people and all my friends would still most likely have to go to work. So the only solution to this seems to be, I don't know, overthrowing the government and the current systems as we know them. Now, I know that I for sure often fall into the trap of being too serious with my life, of brushing off frivolous activities in favor of improving myself, which in turn leads my hangout time with friends to feel like just another task that I need to fulfill, or like just another meeting I have in my calendar. And when I think of my hangouts like this, they just become entirely uninspiring hangouts that I feel like I'm almost doing out of obligation, because I think to some extent that I should hang out with people, not because I actually want to. But this is, of course, ridiculous. And life is absurd. And it should be fun as well, I think, even if you were raised by loser parents who taught you to only think about it in terms of achievements. Because what's the point of achieving things if you're never able to enjoy anything? So, I don't know, I'd say go out for drinks and spend some money and have fun with yourself and your friends for no other reason than to have fun. That's my final parting advice. Be a loser if need be.